So 10 years ago in my journal entry, I wrote, then God tapped me on the shoulder and said, remember why people love you. Take care of that person. I mean that not as a wife or a mother, but as a being who needs things just because I'm me and I need them. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's the only words I have. Sometimes as a wife and mother and a person of color, our care is a byproduct of taking care of others. I'm happy if my family is happy. And that's just not true. There are so many people with happy, healthy, functioning families living locked inside themselves. My happiness and my joy are mine. And if it's dependent on someone else, I will always be at their mercy. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the ride. You're on the mothership inside the Black Magic Mama Room with the greatest podcast on earth. I am Crystal Tennille Irby, mother of 4.
I am Thea Monier, mother of 3.
And I am Nikisha Killings, mother of 4.
We did that.
Do we?
We did.
You know what?
Y'all, our topic is so relevant today. We're talking about entrepreneurship, and we're using a new platform to record. And we've run into some technical, issues before this recording started. So we actually started a little bit late.
I would say the technical is reflecting the personal professional.
What do you mean?
I mean, the tech is reflecting back to us our entrepreneurial challenges of this week.
I don't receive that. I don't receive that.
I mean, the week this is the end of the week.
Okay,
Ram. Definitely reflected what my week was like.
Come through,
I don't receive that. I do not receive that.
When Crystal says she doesn't receive something, you must remember that she's an Aries.
I don't receive that. I do not receive that. I think the technical issues have to do with the platform we'll talk about that in the entrepreneur section, what we're going to do about that. Our topic today is Black motherhood and entrepreneurship. And we've shared a lot about our creative journeys, but we haven't shared a lot about our entrepreneurship journey.
Yep.
And I feel like in the Black community, the answer to everything is start your own business, start your own business, start your own business. You know what I'm saying? And it's like a million coaching programs out here to start your own business and a million gurus. And so we really want to give you an inside look at what this journey is really like.
The real,
you know what I'm saying?
The really real.
Because it looked hot on the gram. Entrepreneurship looks really, really cool on the gram. You know what I'm saying? And I think very few people track motherhood and entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Right. I think even if they are mothers, they're just tracking the entrepreneurship piece and not how motherhood impacts us. So we're going to have a real honest conversation about our journey, where we are today, our challenges, and what we've learned.
You may see me take deep breaths throughout this show if you're watching the video.
Is that a crow? Who has a crow in the background?
That would be me. That would be me.
That tracks with how this has gone so far.
Hopefully Nikisha can stay with us the whole time. She has a heart out. But hopefully she can stay with us the whole time. But today's episode, the outline. Y'all, there's a crow.
The crows are good. The crows.
That sounds like a whole murder. A whole murder. Not one. Not one.
It's very good. They are called murders.
It's a murder. It's a murder.
Yeah. I have a lot of crows around, and, ravens and crows represent the higher consciousness. They represent the ancestral mothers. So they be chiming in. That's a good thing, but you will hear it amongst some other sounds if the parrots are out. Now it just sounds like I'm literally in the wilderness. Remember the episode where Coley Cole Martin was doing bird voice? That's what
I have nothing. I have nothing.
Was doing the bird voices.
Maybe, I have it on noise cancellation. Maybe people don't hear the crows, but there are literally crows in the background. I must say, there is one thing that I do like about this platform. My eyes look so much bigger. On the other platform,
You look
Y'all.
like a Peanuts game character.
And it looks like I was high as fuck. Like,
I mean,
and I'm like, that's literally how my eyes look. So on this one, my eyes do look more open.
But for me, I just look like I have such terrible bags right now. Ugh, it's so bad.
It's the lighting. It's not you. It's the lighting. You remember I told you, sometimes it's the lighting. It's not really you. Remember I told you I was having a moment where I saw pictures of myself and I was like, do I look like that?
It was the mascara situation.
It was when I realized that iPhone camera sucks. And I was like, oh, I don't really look like that. It's like the camera. Yeah.
Mirrors, cameras, pictures. Who needs them?
Crows.
I need the crows. I'll take the crows.
Okay.
There they go.
What do they represent again? Higher consciousness?
Yeah, you don't have them on my body. I have like crow feathers and I have the raven. I used to have the black duck. There they go. That does sound like a murder. But we're not saying murder. A collection of crows is called a murder. So we just want to make sure that we're not associating crows with murder. But
I mean, it's spelled the same way. But
it is, but it's like nigga and nigger. You know what I'm saying, y'all. Just say it different, like murder. And it makes all difference. But they represent higher consciousness, like the unknown, but the beings that know the unknown. Like, think about Edgar Allan Poe, quote, the raven nevermore. The raven knew the whole time what was happening.
Edgar Allan Poe. I'm not surprised he chose a crow.
What's wrong with the crow? Blackbirds. Generally, if you look up the spiritual meaning of blackbirds, it's higher consciousness and the unknown. This is why black pets don't get adopted. It's a discrimination. You would love a dove. I love ravens. I love crows.
I guess in the South, whenever we saw them circling, it's like, oh, something's dead.
But that's death, rebirth, life. They're making that possible.
I mean, they're not vultures.
The unknown. They're not vultures.
I don't think they're vultures. I just didn't want it today. That's all. We'll start off with our responsive reading, which we clearly need today. Then we'll roll into church announcements. And then we will roll into our mac and cheese, which is about Black motherhood and entrepreneurship. And we'll end with Black Mama Say. And this is a really good Black Mama Say because we choose our word today for the year.
Oh.
Nikisha, don't you look away from that camera. Nikisha, we've been talking about this since last year. Don't you look away from that camera, Nikisha. Okay.
I low-key feel like we need to jump into this mac and cheese. We got to express.
Do we have a number here?
I'm not. I can't be trusted.
You can't be trusted, Keish. You can't be trusted today.
Pick 8.
Number 8. Oh,
let's see what 8 talking
number.
about.
Is it low? Why against my birds, my numbers today?
No, I'm saying that's like from the old. That's like we haven't
from
picked
the first
from that.
deck.
Yeah, we haven't picked from that in a long time. We usually pick high numbers. That's all. No shade. What is 8? You're our numbers person. You're on Thee. So what is 8? Whenever I do the cards and I have to pick a card, I'd be like, oh,
it is a lot of things.
I don't know what this number is. Wish Thea was here.
Is it completion or renewal?
Yeah, like
Something
8
like
is 8 is like trying to think about one way. It's a couple of things. But it's, the infinity symbol. So it's things coming back around. It's like associated with karma, but like good karma. Things that you've put out coming back to you. Like think of like a boomerang effect. It's also associated with Obatala, who is over like patience and calm and justice and peace and all these things. So
I need all that today. All that.
It's a good number.
So card number 8 says,
share your inspiration.
Share your inspiration. Dear Mama, far too often we don't stop to recognize our own progress. We tend to measure our progress by the road ahead as opposed to the road we've traveled. Sharing what has inspired us, what tools we've gained, what lessons we've learned is evidence of our progress. Let me read that again. Sharing what has inspired us, what tools we've gained, what lessons we've learned. Oh, this is like really good for today. Is evidence of our progress and how we practice Sankofa, give back, share what you've learned. This is so fitting for today. That's exactly what we're doing. Come on, ancestors. Come on in the room. Okay.
Please come in the room. See, the crows are the ancestral mothers. I just want to
the crows.
point that out. They're the ancestral this. They're coming in the room.
We're going to have a whole link about the crows. I swear, and I'm not joking. I promise. We're going to have a whole link about the crows. Share what you've learned. Each one teach one, and you will feel the full joy of your progress deeply and truly. Oh, this is perfect for today's episode. Absolutely perfect for today's episode. That was really good. Thanks for the number theme. That was really good.
I just want to point out that white doves is just white pigeons. And everybody go crazy about that shit.
I'm not a white dove person either. I like blue. I like
ravens and crows are
like
very important.
Redbirds are people's spirits feature. I love redbirds.
So you like gangbanging is what you say. You like gang. Look at Nikisha's face. You like thug life. Cool. Got it.
I mean, who is that a surprise to?
Yeah,
who is that a surprise?
That's not a surprise to anybody here.
Knowing you back in the late 90s.
I'm okay.
I know. I know what I know.
90s. You know, they got that 90s show, and I'm like, this is not going to do why, right? Mm-hmm. They did a black version of that show, and it'll be,
what was the 90s show?
You know how they did that 70s show? They come out with that 90s show. I haven't watched it, but I knew it was going to be white people's 90s. I don't even know what white people did in the 90s.
I don't appreciate them acting like that was so long ago.
I feel like, you know what? The 90s were so great. Because I really had no consciousness about what white people were doing at all in the 90s.
Keisha's issue is that they act like it was a long time ago.
That's true.
I mean, how do we have a show about something that was just the other day? Like,
that was just the other day.
So
90s. I saw a post that said 1993 was 30 years ago.
And you had to bring that up.
I was mad about it too, so I wanted to share the anger.
So she wanted everybody else to feel it too.
That's
my
wild.
point is, what I loved about the 90s is I had no consciousness about white people. Like, when they said they were going to do a show, I was like, oh my God, what were white people doing during the 90s?
I have no idea what white people were doing in the 90s.
Our 90s were so good that I was completely in my
Crystal, we were at a PWI and we don't know what white people were doing. That is wild to me. I still don't know.
I went to a predominantly white high school. I was the only black girl on my cheerleading team, and I don't know.
I don't know anything about the lives of white people. I was like, what were their 90s like? You know, because ours was so fucking good. Like, I love the 80s and the 90s.
But, you know, we went to a PWI, but we were very
insulated.
Right? We went to class with white people, but
well, you know why I think that we were able to live like that? No social media. Now, these internet streets was now. So we were able to have our own existence within an existence.
I'm not sure I know what white people are doing now.
Oh, I mean, we get more. I have more of an awareness.
Yeah. I have, in order to find out what white people are doing, I have to watch the news because I don't even get it on my social media feed.
Yeah, the way that has been so curated.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
But during that time, I really don't know. Now,
I really don't know
what the jams were. I could tell you what we was wearing, but I can't tell you nothing about what they was doing.
I'm not really sure what their music, because we had the black radio stations.
I mean, we have like, I mean, it's all we listen to.
I mean, I know some of their music, but that's interesting. That's interesting.
I don't know what their 80s and 90s.
That is interesting. Like. Okay, so now that we're clear that we didn't know what white people were doing and we still don't know what white people are doing.
I know.
This is very interesting.
I'm well aware.
Well, because
you be in the streets.
Your work.
And where you live.
Your work. Well, me and her kind of live.
They're mostly trying to end my work.
Mostly
trying to.
That's it.
Put me out of
She and I kind of live in the same thing, but we do different work.
Yeah.
We do different work. Yeah. So now that we have cleared that up, but white people, if you listen, what were your 90s like? Like, what music did you listen to? What were you wearing? Were you wearing the BBD look?
I think Green Day,
strap off.
Green Day was big. Green Day was big, right? Alanis Morissette was big, right? These are the people I remember.
Yeah, was that the 90s or early 2000s?
No, because I graduated in 98.
Oh, God. High school?
Mm-hmm.
Girl, I was graduating college in 98. Okay.
And I was not. I was not.
Nikisha, you was in business school, though. You know, everybody took 5 years in business school, Nikisha. Everybody took 5 years in business school. That Florida State Business School was the beast. Yeah.
I appreciate that. I'll take that.
Yeah.
That.
So, white people chime in. Let us know. What were you doing in the 90s?
Just let me know if I was right about Green Day. That's about all I know about your 90s.
Did you vote for Bill Clinton? Did you watch Arsenio Hall? Were you sad when A Different World ended? Did you...
Inquiring minds want to know. Did you even know The Different World was on the air?
Did you understand what the whole LA uprising was about?
God,
was Friends
in the 90s?
Was Friends in the 90s when we were watching Living Single?
I've seen 2 episodes of Friends.
I think they might have been watching Friends.
Did you watch Living Single?
Friends was a white living single. So
I want to know, white people.
This is very interesting.
I want to know. I want to know what white people were doing in the 90s. Okay, so please.
I feel like we won't get firsthand accounts, but some of our listeners will ask some of their homies and report back.
Let us know.
I don't think they're in the audience.
We got some folks. We got some folks in these DBM streets.
Hey, y'all.
I want to know what white people were doing in the 90s. I cheered with them. And I don't know.
And what were you wearing? That's also, I know what we were wearing, but
that's
what was y'all wearing?
Were you wearing the BBD look? Well, that was like, was that 90s or 80s?
No, I think, don't give many reference points. We just
need reference points.
You're giving too many references.
Got it.
And the only references we have is our shit. And if they were wearing our shit, then it's a little, So I want to know what their shit was looking like.
Okay. All right. Let us know, white people. Let us know. Okay. So now let's roll into our church announcements, prayer requests, and praise report. So, praise report. We're back on YouTube, people. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also coming up in April, it's Black Maternal Health Week, April 11th through the 17th. Those are all my announcements. Oh, one final announcement. I will be having a fundraiser for my birthday. My birthday is March 22nd. I'm in Aries. We're the first of the zodiac sign.
Oh, God.
And I think, I don't know. That's what we say. But, I will be having a fundraiser for my birthday, raising money for my nonprofit, which is called Creators Well. And Creators Well is a program for Black girls ages 12 to 19, living in South Carolina who are interested in writing, performance, and other art. So I'll be having a fundraising for that for my birthday, and we'll have the link in our show notes. So those are all my announcements. Does DBM have anything big? No, we don't have really anything big coming up right now.
Yay.
I can't wait to get to this mac and cheese because...
Okay, all right. I'll make this snappy. Listen,
I got some shit to get off my chest.
Praise report, I'm still here. All right.
You are.
Who would have thunk it? All right. And
we would have to, Keisha.
Some days.
This is going to be a whole playlist for this episode because that made me think of Elton John's I'm Still Standing.
Yes. Praise report, all is well. We continue to move forward. It's a new year, and that's a praise report. Just sitting in gratitude that we're still going. We're still moving forward. There we go. Thea, what you got? What you got? Praise report, prayer requests, announcements, or you just want to get to this mac and cheese?
I just
honey?
got this life that be lifing. This life that be lifing. Always grateful, of course. It's slow and fast at the same time. And I have to more so witness and be present with the way on the smallest, tiniest levels it's lining up. So it's a time of activity, but inactivity. Things around my external is very active, but my internal is has to be not responsive to the external activity. My internal assignment is very simple, very clear, but the external is moving in such a way that my big practice is not responding. Good or bad, yay or nay, whatever. It's just kind of like, it is just things happening, lifing, and that is a really tough practice in entrepreneurship and motherhood and spiritual practice. I'm so ready for this mac and cheese.
Let's eat. Come on.
So that's all for our church announcement, praise reports, and prayer list requests. Please be sure that you are following us on all social media platforms at Dem Black Mamas Podcast. And also make sure you're signed up for our newsletter. Okay, so let's move on to our mac and cheese. Okay, so for the mac and cheese, we're going to be talking about Black motherhood and entrepreneurship. And like I said before, what inspired this topic for me was like this constant drumbeat in our community that the answer to everything is entrepreneurship, and Black people just need to own stuff, and that'll solve our own problems, and then we can just keep our money in our community, which I feel like you got to have people work for you so everybody can't own, you know what I'm saying? But I also feel like I think since the pandemic, our economy is very, very different because I think people learned a lot of lessons from the previous recession, and people learned a lot of lessons from the pandemic. And so the way that we're going about making money is really, really different. And I don't think that analysts have caught up with this new kind of more complex economy that we have when it comes to the workforce. But one of the most interesting things that has come about in the last, I guess, 5 or 10 years is the entrepreneurship of Black women. So I'm going to read a couple of facts here. So I got this from this article. Black women are the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs, but the job isn't easy, because often that's touted. Black women are starting businesses more than anybody else, right? Black women are the fastest growing demographic of entrepreneurs in the U.S., but they face disproportionate financial headwinds. Given a lack of access to capital, Black women are more likely than any other demographic group to self-fund their businesses.
Which is exactly what we do.
Exactly.
To create a more equitable environment, the finance community must recognize the biases that exist in investment assessments. Okay, so that's 3 facts from that article. The next article was why Black women are the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs. So here's some reasons why Black women start their own businesses. Black women starting their own businesses seek greater freedom, fulfillment, and they feel like they're capable of more than what their job is offering and what they can do in that particular field. This article echoed the first article, Black women own businesses, rapid growth, slow development.
I want to add to that. There's another article I saw that's showing that kind of the opposite effect of that, which is that Black women leaving the workforce is leaving a gap in the workforce that they're having a really difficult time filling, because the absence of Black women in the workforce is showing how much they were actually holding up and bringing to the table that was not being recognized.
Which means that they were outperforming their...
always outperforming. Always but I want to say this too.
Outperforming their pay grade.
Yeah. Oh, not just their pay grade, but probably their peers,
counterparts,
because they have more to show.
Yeah.
But to prove. But I want to say this so that we don't kind of start this conversation on the wrong... on a false note. The Black women returning to entrepreneurship is a return. It's not a new development, right? Yeah. Like, we are entrepreneurs. Like, when I go to other Black and brown countries, people own shops. The women, they're making things and they're selling things. Like, that is actually our baseline and our normal. It is not our normal to be working up under other people. And so it's interesting that these traumas, like the crash or the recession or the pandemic, are opening up a return to a more natural way of us working and finding money, mainly because we do want to have some control of the ebb and flow, not just of the money, but of the interaction with community. We want to create spaces that reflect our mothering, reflect our values. And so, one of the things I love about going to Black and brown countries is everybody has a shop. Corporations coming in and being these big conglomerates was that's the new thing. We are kind of like returning to this other thing, but within a capitalist system. And that's where I think the rub comes in, right? Because what does success look like for that model within a capitalist system? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
All of my dad's sisters either own their own businesses or they were stayed at home. They did not go
work for the man.
Somebody.
They did not go work for somebody. They all own their own businesses or they stayed at home. And I actually think that, you know, when I think about Black women, after enslavement, when I think about Madam C.J. Walker, like, and she wasn't like alone in having a beauty shop and things like that. But I think about us always being able to see a void and have this ingenuity to fill it. So I really want to have this conversation, yes, from that space. And I want to have the conversation from a space of, when you talk about capitalism, our intention for this episode is, we have an intention for every episode. Our intention for this episode is to illuminate the entrepreneurial experience of Black mothers in order to divest from grind culture to help us find our own flow. Because like I said, I think there's so many coaching programs out here, but I think one of the things that they don't take into consideration is motherhood. So then you have,
for sure.
know, and the other thing I don't think that they take into consideration is that creatives who kind of by default have to be entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Who don't
very
really
want
to be entrepreneurs, but
really wasn't trying to do all that. And there is a struggle
just want to
there
create.
too.
Just want to create.
And when you're but by default, when you're creative, you become an entrepreneur. So I always like to start with a question that takes us back and brings us forward. So regarding entrepreneurship, 10 years ago, where were you? And did you think you would be where you are right now? Keep hitting my mic.
I'll start. You want to start, Nikisha?
No. Go ahead.
So 10 years ago, I was leaving wraparound. I was in my wraparound program working for a nonprofit agency in mental health, but I was reaching my peak with that. I was definitely burning out. And I had been fighting how it ran, fighting the systemic issues within it. My peak wasn't even the clients, even though the stuff was difficult. My peak was the systemic issues that were causing the stress for my clients, but also causing my frustration with being able to serve my clients. And I had actually written a letter to this agency, like expecting to get fired for calling them out on the way that they were complicit with systemic racism and within the company and outside of the company. And, you know, nobody wanted to sign this letter with me. Like everybody was like, we want you to do the letter, but, you know, I've never been afraid of being fired. So I was like, if they fire me over this shit, then Spirit will take care of me because I did what I had to do. I sent it over and then they did like this whole apology tour. They came to each site. They wanted to hear from people, blah, 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 blah. And they offered me, I'll never forget this, because I got the word that I could go to Cal State LA. They said, you can have any position in the company you want. I said, you have nothing here that I want. And I left and I went to Cal State LA. I think at that point, I still thought I could find a place that already existed that would meet me where I was, or I still thought that such a space, I could find it and just work there. And I have to take it all on because at that point, my kids were 10 and like 8.5. And so very much part of my motherhood, this impacted my creativity as an artist too, was I have to have sustainable income. I didn't have the most reliable supportive partnership at the time. So I was like, if anything, you know, we Black women are taught, if anything goes wrong, it's on you. You got to take care of them kids. You got to have a stash. You know, they can leave, but you can't. And so it never occurred to me that I could take what felt like a huge risk to go on my own because I had to maintain financial stability. The idea of my own hadn't entered my mind. The hope that I could find a space that would, you know, work for me was still there somewhere, but I was also peaking where I was. So that's where I was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Good God.
Yeah.
What a
to
difference a
think back,
decade makes.
It's been amazing.
I do that because Ava DuVernay talks about where she was 10 years ago. And if you look at where she was 10 years ago and where she is now, it's like amazing. So I love the decade look. I love the decade look.
Yeah. When I first heard the question, I was like, maybe I should go back 15 years. That's when it was really different. I wasn't even in this field yet. But no, 10 is enough. 10 is enough. Because at that point, I had a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a newborn, or, less than 6 months old. So 3 under 5. And was trying to find my footing in this work, trying to find balancing, 3 toddlers at home, or, toddler/infants at home, and trying to figure out how I can do my very best to support families with breastfeeding and show up in a way that was authentic to me. And I hadn't figured it out yet. And I hadn't found my footing yet. And it was just volunteering. I had just graduated my master's and wasn't sure how to apply that. It wasn't quite there yet. I remember it was about 10 years ago. I threw up a little website, named a company, but still was like, I'm still kind of stay at home. I got this cushion, and wasn't really needing to really make it, something to stand up on its own yet. So yeah, that was very, very different space to be in versus today. I can't even fathom really all that's happened in 10 years.
Right. I'm sitting here holding my heart because just the thought of it all.
Yeah. Did either of you think you'd be where you are now?
No.
It wasn't even on my radar.
No, it wasn't.
So 10 years ago, I was pregnant with the final child. And we were going through a custody battle. My husband and I weren't battling each other, but we were going through a custody battle for our oldest 2 children. And I was severely depressed, and I had absolutely no direction in my life. I did not know. I didn't even know podcasting was a thing. I had never, ever heard of podcasting 10 years ago. None of this was on my radar. The only thing that I was doing 10 years ago was trying to carve out a space for Black girls in South Carolina interested in writing and performance. That wasn't even Creators Well. That was in MLK
I remember
poetry contest, because I knew that someone believing in my work changed the trajectory of my life when I was 16 years old. And so I wanted to give that back to someone else. But I was completely lost 10 years ago. I was depressed and didn't even know that I was depressed. I was a high functioning, high functioning in depression. Yeah. And did not even know it. Trying to figure out how to be a mother, because we had a blended household. So that presented some challenges. And pregnancy and motherhood had not been this, it didn't look
dreamy.
Like it didn't look like what I thought it was going to look like. And I had all the bells and whistles, like I didn't have to work, I could stay at home. But when I say I was completely lost, I was completely lost, and I had let go of my dreams in California and didn't know those new dreams hadn't come to me yet. I didn't. I love that think phrase. I think I had maybe forgotten how to dream.
You were also grieving.
I was grieving
and not
a lot.
knowing you were grieving. That's what I was thinking. You were grieving it and not like knowing. I don't even know if I was in grief. Maybe
I was in grief,
but you weren't grieving yet.
I had not even begun to grieve yet.
That's it. Yeah,
I had lost a lot of people and did not know how to and was angry about those losses.
You had lost a lot of people, but also a lot of ideas about what things would look like. Also, you were in grief about that too.
And I think that's also when I began to write for Harriet.
Yeah, for Harriet. You know what you made me realize too, Crystal, is if I think 10 years ago, I was decolonizing mental health. I just didn't know that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so I think when I listened to all of us, it was like the very early budding, but it was coming through our lived experience, literally. Like we were, because we were living this way, it was the origin stories of what we're doing now.
Yeah. While you're looking for that, Crystal, I want to just hold space for a second for a couple of things that really resonated as you were talking. All of us really, but I think there are some mamas listening right now who are like, I don't really see how this thing I'm doing or this thing I love to do can transform into something new. And they didn't even realize they could dream a new dream and new dreams could come to them. We just are in a time right now where so many are hopeless and they can't see beyond. I don't know if you all have seen people with the tattoo with the semicolon.
Yeah.
To remind us that this is not the end, that there is more. There is more if you stick around and if you hold fast. And there's a phrase in Christianity, and I'm sure there's probably something really similar in other belief systems that says your gifts will make room for you.
Room for you.
You know what I mean? With that thing that you were put here to do, that gifting that you were born with, that destiny that you are here for will manifest. It will make room for you. It will create new pathways to come to fruition if you hold on. If you hold on. And somebody need to hear that. So I just put it out there because they're stuck.
So 10 years ago in my journal entry, I wrote, "Then God tapped me on the shoulder and said, remember why people love you. Take care of that person." I mean that not as a wife or a mother, but as a being who needs things just because I'm me and I need them. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's the only words I have. Sometimes as a wife and mother and a person of color, our care is a byproduct of taking care of others. I'm happy if my family is happy. And that's just not true. There are so many people with happy, healthy, functioning families living locked inside themselves. My happiness and my joy are mine. And if it's dependent on someone else, I will always be at their mercy. When I am healthy, when I'm at peace, when I'm writing, when I'm progressing, when I'm performing, and when I am with God, I am full of joy. And I discover the path God has laid before me. I remember to have faith and just walk in it. I discover my husband loves me without cause or consequences. I remember water has always brought me peace and clarity. It calms all this fire inside me. Long baths, ocean, prayer, and words have always been things I wrap myself in. They help me discover what I need and to remind me to take care of myself. No one can take care of me like me. This isn't about self-love. It's about self-remembrance. This month, I commit to prayer, water, words, silence, solitudes, and moments, deep or shallow, all and only about me. I commit to sowing a seed of care within myself. So I wrote that in my journal 10 years ago. And 2 years after that, I wrote an article for Harriet called "Motherhood is Not the Graveyard of Dreams," which is now the mantra of this podcast.
Yes. Yes. What a difference 10 years makes.
What a difference 10 years makes. Like something can totally not even be on your radar. Like entrepreneurship, I just wanted to be a creative.
This is one of the reasons I bow my head every day and I prioritize my altar time, because like less than 1% of life is what I'm doing. And 99.999% is what the universe is doing. And the only way to increase my contribution to that is by getting in the way less. Because while I'm thinking I'm doing all these things, it's really, Oya ancestors, it's really the divinities that are keeping the track, keeping the course, prioritizing the destiny, prioritizing the purpose. When I'm thinking my purpose is to pay this bill or to take care of this kid or to take care of this person, they're protecting it, insulating it, pushing it forward, even when I have forgotten that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
And that's why you have to humble yourself, because you don't know. Every time you think you know, you have to remember, I know nothing. I am just a child in the lap of this great unraveling mystery of life. I don't know why my piece of the puzzle fits here. I don't need to know. I just want to be where I should be at the appropriate time.
I think it's beautiful that none of us saw ourselves here. I do.
And
I
it
think
also
that's
gives us
beautiful.
when I think 10 years ahead, it helps me to release the idea that I should know what that looks like.
Yes.
Because clearly I didn't fucking know 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to know now, right?
Yeah. It worked out.
Yeah.
And it worked out and continues to.
Yeah.
Continues to. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
so
big.
what surprised you about entrepreneurship?
Oh.
I think that it's lonely.
Oh, Nikisha, you took mine.
Did I really?
It is lonely, man.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
When you're starting out.
Yeah.
I would add to that.
Not unlike motherhood. It's a burden.
Not unlike,
right?
Yeah.
Mm.
I would add to that it's really such an undoing. You know, they tell you, do this, open this account, follow these steps, and none of that is right. I mean, it could be helpful, but the truth is the path of the entrepreneur is the path of the unknown, and getting comfortable with the unknown, getting comfortable with not being in control, and mastering your ability to release, let go, and flow is the key to becoming a good entrepreneur, so that you don't think for 1 second that all this is just because you and your hard work. That's some bootstraps, American manifest destiny bullshit. And going back to what you said earlier about your dad's sisters, Crystal, is that when we build businesses, we never see them absent the community. We see them as a member, a part of the community. And the corporations that come into our communities don't see themselves as members of the community, but that's how we build business. There is a lot of weight to that, right? Because like you said, those are the job creators. The person who owns the local tienda, the local fonda, the local shop, they're not just holding that for them. They know there are other families that are counting on those paychecks, you know, so that's the loneliness, right? Like the feeling like, what if I don't do something right? It's a constant undoing. It's very ego dragging.
I would say, Thea, I don't know. I would say if you're willing.
If you're willing what?
If you're willing to undo. I think that there are a lot of entrepreneurs, particularly, and I'm just going to speak from my own experience here, particularly if you're not a creative, right? That are willing
to follow the formula.
Will just follow the formula.
Yeah, this is a good point.
And won't do the underwork of what am I learning about myself? What is it teaching about myself? What is coming up for me?
Good point.
Now, they'll eventually hit a burnout.
Yeah, and then make a transition.
Or what I'm also seeing, they'll have a kid.
That's very true. That's very true.
If they're a birthing person, they'll have a child.
And then they'll make a radical shift in their platform.
And they'll make a radical shift. So it's an undoing.
That's important.
It's an undoing if you allow
I would say
it to
then
be.
what that means is that either way, an undoing is almost inevitable in the journey at some point. Whether that undoing comes to parenthood or death, a loss of some sort, like that you cannot get around
the undoing.
The undoing
at some point.
Which is unraveling, really, if you let it.
It's so humbling.
Yes.
People be like, you doing it, girl. You did. I'll be like, bitch, what am I doing? Like, what am I? So you doing it? What am I? Tell me. What did you see?
When people be like, you see? When people be like, you doing it, girl? I'll be like, you want to do it? Because
I'm so glad it looks orderly and organized. And I can tell you it's intentional. But the fact that y'all think it looks organized or like I made these things, I literally day to day do not know what the fuck. Yeah. You know, it's very much so, Crystal, like what you taught me about producing a play, that it looks a fucking mess on the back end, but but once it gets on stage, people don't know.
Like if anybody's ever done theater, you know that the props, if you like go up on stage and look at the props, they look like trash. You can see like, this is not painted good. But from far away, like from first row audience, it looks amazing. Like, wow, this is amazing.
Yes, God.
It's so
nice
much
props.
electrical tape holding up
so
that
much. In the back, people got the wrong outfit on it and said the wrong line. So, it is always like, I would say that also sometimes feeds like imposter syndrome, like feeling like, does this thing look bigger than it is? Can I really hold this big thing together? Because it seems so big on the outside. And it is big, but it's like, it's just little you holding it together on the inside, right? So it's like, can I hold this big thing? And it's a constant David and Goliath story, right?
It is. It is. For real.
I think I have the opposite problem.
What?
I think I'd be like,
oh no, she has delusions of grandeur.
Oh, well.
I'd be like, this should be bigger.
That's
this should be bigger.
You told me I need to go bigger.
I do. I'd be like, why isn't this bigger? I don't know if that's imposter syndrome, but it does breed like, what am I not doing that this is not bigger? What is the block that
I think for me, I'm
not
like,
bigger.
I'm like, did I do too much? Is this big thing gonna?
Oh, I never think.
I feel like it's this big thing that I put out there that I felt with such passion going to like crush me, like a bug.
No, I actually feel the opposite, which led me, I think. Well, wait, I do want to talk about that lonely piece. Like that lonely piece is really real.
Yeah.
Because also as a creative, you feel very lonely, and then to have entrepreneurship on top of that, like, a lot of times when you're in that incubator phase, when you're starting your entrepreneurship journey and you haven't found partners, I mean, maybe you're part of a cohort or something like that, but you still have those moments where it's just you building that thing.
That's also very a capitalist and Western too.
Yeah.
Like when I go to like Charm or I go to in Panama, right? For example, like if I'm going to a shop and they don't have something, they'll be like, 1 second, and they'll go to the shop next door and let them know. It's very communal. So, and sometimes it's family members and sometimes it's friends, but it's very communal. And it looks like, okay, if you get the sale, we get the sale. And I've seen this, like, whether it's like, I'm saying that loneliness piece, I think is also a byproduct of like the capitalism piece we have to deal with here.
I think some of it is, but I do know people who are in community and building, but they're just things that you have to do by yourself because it's I think that's the loneliness that I'm talking about. I was reading Tabitha Brown's book and she talked about like wanting her husband to get on board with her journey or wanting other people to get on board with her journey. Yeah. And her mom was like, God gave you the vision. God gave you the dream.
Now, I think that's the piece when it comes to purpose and destiny. And but that's always will be a part you have to do alone.
But that's what I'm talking about in terms of entrepreneurship. Like, I know this is my destiny. I know this is my purpose.
Oh, it's very lonely.
Yeah.
And you feel like, I would tell you, and you feel a little gaslit. And I don't want to use this word in an ableist way, but I'm using it in the way you feel a little like crazy. You're seeing something before it's evident. You're trying to show other people this thing. And there are definitely times when you want people to co-sign something that they can't see with you. And you feel
they can't see
really like it's very frustrating. That's a very frustrating. And then you have to go alone.
That's it.
Because
it's gonna, you're the one who holds the vision, and try as you may, you can't make anybody else see it the way that you.
And it will look. But I'll tell you, Renee Marie, who was on a recent episode of Shaping the Shift, she said to me, and I always hold on to this: what looks psychotic to the world makes perfect sense to the universe. And her telling me that gave me so much permission to actually feel like when something does look like so out of reality, so out of touch that people can't identify it with me, that means I'm on the right path because that's the kind of thing I'm here to do and tap into.
I remember, Nikisha, when you were trying to explain to people what you were trying to do with the Atlas, and people were like, I don't know what you mean.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was telling people, oh, I'm starting a podcast, and people were like,
what is that?
What is that? What is a podcast? What do you do?
Yeah.
Like,
can I insert in there?
Yeah.
And there are people to this day trying to emulate what you have done, but because they didn't get the vision for themselves, they don't have the clarity, can't do it.
Or the ashe.
We've seen so many, podcasts come behind and just that's not what they were supposed to do. They saw a thing. Oh, look at that shiny thing. Let me try to do that thing. But that wasn't given to them to do. Right?
Yeah.
Carry on. Yeah. I'm preaching to them.
It's a very that loneliness did surprise me.
That is tough. And I would say that's when you know you're in a spiritual quest place with your particular purpose in ministry. Listen, you know, I've had recently, well, y'all has had to tell me, like, you can't have no partners in this. Like, I'm your partner. You know, that's when you got to have your answer to the spirit.
That sounds very like high grounded and like, oh God, that's so spiritually elevated. I remember reading Ayala Van Zandt. I can't remember which book it was. And she had like this house. On the top floor of the house was like Buddha and Jesus and like, you know, all these like higher beings, Muhammad, like all these higher beings, right? And I was always like, I think I just want to be on like the third floor. Like, I think I'm just good on the third floor. I don't have to be in the attic. Like, I'm cool on the third floor. And like, I'm in the attic and it's tough up there. It is so tight. It's tight up there.
Oh my God. Can we sit in the attic for a second? Can we sit in the attic for a second?
In the attic, you stay on your knees.
Let's talk about it though. Let's talk about it though. The attic, here's the fucked upness of the attic. Here's the fucked upness. That might be the name of this episode, the fucked upness of the attic. The upper room is that once you have said yes to the purpose, you cannot get out of the attic.
That's the trick. That's the trick. That's the trick. That's the trick. That's the trick.
I'm gonna teach y'all.
Because I didn't know I was going in the attic. I thought I was just starting a podcast. I thought I was just starting a podcast.
The thing about the attic is it locks from the outside. It locks from the outside. You cannot get out of the attic. That's one. It locks from the outside. Two is that you got to deal with niggas in the basement. Even when you in the attic. So here you are in the attic. You know what's in the attic. You see what's in the attic. Your life is in the attic. But yet and still, if I'm in the attic, why do I got to deal with niggas in the basement? So here's the thing. You can't go out and go back down. No, wait. Let me finish. You are in the attic. Once you know what you know, you can't unknow it. That's the reality.
Right.
Now, you can't go down without severe fucking, like, you don't want to do it. But niggas from the basement can come up and peek at the attic and fuck up your vibe. They use the niggas in the basement to get you to act right in the attic. It's terrible. But
she ain't lying, y'all.
The attic is tight.
And then you ask yourself, would I rather go down to the basement? I mean, no. The other thing that is about being in the attic and when you are taking your entrepreneurial journey beyond the product, beyond the things people can see.
Yes.
But what you really recognize is whatever your thing is, it is a vehicle of a certain energy, a certain spirit. Yeah. And so the way you hold it has to be in priesthood, right? Like in priesthood, you know, if you embody the energy of this thing, then you are responsible for the maintenance and how it looks. I've never thought of Maternal as a company. I've always thought of it as a living and breathing thing. As it amasses more energy, I find that shit needs to be done on the physical level, but the work is very much about the internal pieces required to hold the energy that is being amassed by the entity, right? So my work looks more inner, but the outer still needs to get done. And though, the more I do the inner stuff, the more I realize all the outer stuff I thought needed to be done doesn't need to be done. It's not life or death. Until somebody else can take it on, the priority has to be maintaining the capacity, your own capacity to hold the energy of the entity. If that goes away, everything else is replaceable.
Yeah.
The email could be sent a day late. All these things could happen. But the thing that's not is your ability. And so you have to take care of yourself in a different way when you're at that level with your company. And it's weird because you're used to it being like, I got to do this, I got to do that. But it's almost like the more you do, the less capacity you have. You have to actually like working on building your lung capacity. You have to sit and allow yourself to stretch so that the company can stretch. I hope I'm explaining it well.
I just want to say one of the big pushes with entrepreneurship is you got to hire. You got to hire.
Yeah.
You got to expand your company. But you can do that too soon if you are not centered in how your company should be held, right?
You can hire the wrong people. You can bring the wrong energies in.
All sorts. You can hire the wrong people. You can actually hire the right people.
You can lose a lot of money.
You can, but you can actually hire the right people. You can make a lot of money, but you may not be ready for it.
No, I think you could lose a lot of money.
Well, I'm saying,
you can make
both.
Yeah.
But I'm saying the opposite can happen too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either way, if you're not ready and sure of how your company,
sustainable,
it will not be sustainable. And that was a huge mistake that I made last year, was hiring help when I had just gotten back into DBM, but I didn't understand my own flow and how I operated. So now I'm bringing someone else on, and then I'm trying to understand their flow, and I don't even understand my flow.
There it is.
Right?
There it is.
I'm just now getting recentered back into this thing. Right. And so I'm bringing someone in, and I'm not even centered, and I'm not even sure of what the full energy of Dem Black Mamas is again. Yeah. Right. And I'm bringing someone else into that. And I made a lot of money. I feel like I hired the right people, but I wasn't ready because I hadn't really set with and felt that energy and let it fully fill out in me. So I was trying to speed up.
Because the push is that you got to make money right away.
Well, I was going to say I was trying to speed up instead of spread out and slow down.
Yes.
Well, because I think, and we have different scenarios too. Like for me, needing to produce money quickly was a real factor for me to be able to leave the workforce and be able to be in this full time.
That's real.
It had to look financially sustainable because I did not have financial sustainability in my partnerships. And a lot of people are in this position. Like a lot of those entrepreneurs are single moms, right? And people who, this sounds good, like a good idea, but to say the first 3 years is you sitting with this vision and you getting to know it and it getting to know you, that can sound luxurious when you need the money. So this is why my journey looked different, because I had to build my company in the margins. That's where Don't Give Them the Whole 8 came from. 5-6 years ago, I had to decide that it's going to be a process getting to my own company. So it was like an hour a day, just like I described. It was literally in the margins. And I had to fight every year to give it a little bit more space. It's like starting a garden and you only have like a little foot, of land. But you do good with that. And then you give yourself another foot the next year. And it's hard because you have to put yourself there, and you do a lot of compartmentalizing and shifting. And it's a lot of that. It's a tough process. What I tell people is you still don't want to make your company responsible for that so soon.
That's what I did.
You're going to have to keep working.
Yeah.
You're going to have to keep working while you build it. Let me tell you why it's good. It's because you're tending the garden. You're getting it ready for the thing you want. And it does matter, and it is valuable. It is the work. I promise you, it don't always feel like it. Slowly what'll happen is you'll wake up and this life is more of your life than that life, right? Like slowly this will be the margins.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But you just move them out little by little by little. And Crystal told me yesterday, she said, I'm so tired of you saying little by little. It's time for big. I'm ready for big for big now. But what got me there was the little by little.
Yeah.
And now I do feel ready for big. Now I feel ready. Like if something big were to come to me, I know what Marley I.O. is. It's kind of like House of Dragon. I know how to ride my dragon. I had to take the time to learn my dragon. This is a great metaphor, though, right? Because, just because you got the dragon don't mean the dragon's going to do what you want it to do.
That was my journey. So I had all the time and space, but still took those things on too soon.
Yeah.
Wasn't ready because I hadn't sat long enough.
Yeah.
So even if
it can feel like a long time to sit.
Everybody was like, your podcast has been around for this long. Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? Why aren't you doing that? And I had to remember, I started my podcast when people didn't even know what podcasting was. You had to go on the third page of Google to find out how to record a podcast with people in different locations. Now it's 5 different apps that you can do this on. You know what I'm saying? You could barely do it on Zoom when we started out. And so I think I'm an example of what you're talking about when you're trying to do it fast instead of trying to do it, and I don't want to say right, in alignment.
Can we talk about, because I think this leads right into the money discussion about it being self-funded. What is that?
That's what I was doing. Girl, yes.
What's that stat?
Yes. Okay, so it says, given a lack of access to capital, Black women are more likely than any other demographic group to self-fund their business. There's a rapid growth of Black women entrepreneurs, but their businesses develop at a much slower pace because they are self-funded. How has that impacted you emotionally and mentally? Okay. So Nikisha went off camera. So let me say this.
This is such a good topic.
I think we all have different scenarios here. So
okay, we'll each answer this one.
Okay, so in my family, my husband is the breadwinner, which is very difficult for me in the beginning because I come from a mama who you got to have your own. Mm-hmm. Even if a man say he gonna take care of you, you got to have your own. And I had always taken care of myself. I never imagined getting married. And I never imagined that I would be in a position where I could, stay home and just, follow my dreams. With that being said, we do have a household that has responsibilities, and that's where, the money goes. So the money that I make goes to the household, and it also goes to my business. But I feel a lot of guilt, a tremendous amount of guilt when I put money into my business and my business does not make money. Because there are things that I desire for my family, experiences that I want to have for my family, for my husband and I, for my children. And so there's just a lot of guilt there. And it's like, how much do I give this business? And then there's also this pressure of, well, do this, you got to spend money to make money. And also I'm a creative. And I feel like, there's no straight path in being a creative, right? Like if you're a doctor, you go to med school. If you're a teacher, you go to college, you get certified and you become a teacher. I mean, it's a million different ways to become a TV and film writer. It's a million different ways to, become an actress. It's a million different ways to have your podcast become successful, right? And it does take investment of your own. But the thing that I feel most emotionally and mentally is getting past that guilt. And I have no doubt that my husband believes in me. I mean, he bought me my first computer. He bought me my first desk, and he just bought me a new computer for Christmas. There's so many things I can look around in my office that show me that he believes in me. But the guilt of that money going into my business and my business not making money. When I was an artist and it was just me out in LA doing my grind, it was just me. It was just me. Even that, there was some shame around that. Like, you're smart. You could just go get a job. You could just do something else and be successful. How long are you going to do this? How much time are you going to give this? The toll that it takes on me emotionally and mentally is guilt. I feel a lot of guilt.
Ooh. So I love the phrase "in the margins," Thea. That is so representative of the way that my businesses have always existed. I kind of been entrepreneurial, for like 20 years. If I'm being honest, there's always a side hustle. It was always I'm ghostwriting on the side for pastors. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it wasn't
That's what
until,
I'm saying about it being ancestral. That's a part of us.
That's real. That's real. And every day I learn something more that grandmothers were doing. You know what I mean?
Rent parties.
Did anybody grandmothers do ball tickets? Do they do ball
Mine
tickets
did
in South
rent
Carolina?
parties.
Are ball tickets only a thing in South Carolina?
What's a ball ticket?
A ball ticket is like these little tickets. It's like the numbers, but it's like these little tickets, and they sell them, and you pull a ticket, and your ticket has numbers on it. And depending on who wins, if it's baseball season, it's the baseball game, whatever the score is, the football game, whatever the score is, if your
Her accent comes out when she's talking about it.
That's so true. If your tickets have that number, then you hit the ball ticket. It's illegal. It's totally illegal.
I don't know. Okay. All right. Running numbers.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ticket house, liquor house.
Oh, Okay.
Yeah, you go to the liquor
Okay.
house to get your ball ticket.
Okay.
Or somebody can have a ball ticket party. They charge people to get in. You get a ticket. Yeah.
I'm with it. Oh, goodness. I got excited. I yanked out my headphones. It wasn't until 5 years ago or so that my husband said, hey, I'm going to be retiring here soon. And this main income will no longer be a consistent thing in our home. So I'm going to need your side hustle to pick up a little steam to become a main hustle. You know what I mean? Like, what can you do to kind of work on shifting where the income for this household comes from? How can we expand? How can we pour into your businesses to make them a main thing? And I was like, oh, I know you lying. Because side hustle was my expertise. Main hustle was not. And so that really became a major stressor. I had a deep, I don't even know, dread, guilt. There was a lot of emotion around what it would mean to really have everything flipped. And for me to kind of be the chief breadwinner in a short amount of time. And what I had, based on what I'd seen others do in my field, for me, the only outlets were, I guess I'm going to be on the speaking circuit and talking at all the conferences. That must be the way I'm going to turn this buck, right? Or, seeing a whole lot of patients every day, all day, which means I am no longer going to be home educating. I'm no longer going to be, as involved and as present with my kids. And that was a lot for me to really kind of wrap my mind around. I didn't know that this thing would come to be in a way that didn't require me to sacrifice any of those things. As we all said, we couldn't have imagined it this way, but it ended up looking like working in the margins and the margin getting wider and wider and wider until it took up the whole page.
Yeah.
And, I'm speaking here. Those monies for speaking, while we still have his income, those monies for speaking were able to go into building my thing. And we just shifted as a family for a little bit to say, hey, everything you take in for this amount of time can go as an investment to your business. And that's how we'll make this thing what it needs to be in order to flourish and be a substantial contributor to our home. But it was very, very scary for me. And as somebody who has to see, I have to see how it's going to play out, right? To be all in, I got to be sure. There was no certainty. What you mean?
Have to see how something has to play out?
I mean, I need to know that there's going to be a return on this investment. To your point, because that's a lot to risk. It's a lot to risk for it to not work out in the end. Yeah. And so it was uncomfortable. It still is uncomfortable today. So yeah, I think the emotions were heavy and varied and continues to show up very differently at different times for me. As that timeline is ticking down, we're now kind of at the end of that timeline. It's almost time to make that shift in the next year or two. That's a considerable, kind of thing to take on when you've been riding all along as I'm gonna contribute a little $2, a little few dollars here when I can, to now being like, you know what? It could all come down to your thing that's no longer in the margins. That's a lot to carry. But, I feel like it's in us. I know so many of my ancestors, so many of the strong women in my family have run amazing businesses. And I'm still learning about so many of them as I get to know them and their stories. There's no question that this was all a part of who I was supposed to be anyway, what I was supposed to do. But that ain't make it easy.
No. That brings up so much emotion for me. That's why I've just kind of been sitting with everything you all have been saying. I have felt like I've had to be self-funded my entire life. I don't know any other type of funding other than self-funding. Most businesses will take out a loan. And I didn't know that was even a thing. Like, I knew there's business loans. I know people, I get that, but it never felt like something for me to do. When the thought of owing people makes me nauseous.
That does
pressure
does bother her a great deal.
Yeah, the pressure, that I feel a tremendous amount of pressure about that, even if nobody's putting the pressure.
Yeah.
For the longest, I did not know the boundary between my company and my earnings. Because I remember I've worked this whole time. So I had a whole paycheck coming into this household steady. In fact, for periods of time, for significant periods of time, it was the breadwinning paycheck of the households I've been in since adulthood. It's always been that since adulthood. But I felt an obligation to fill in the gaps using my pay from outside that paycheck. So not only was I using my breadwinner money, I also felt the obligation to use my outside through my businesses, money. And so to fill in the gaps. And that was preventing my businesses from growing. They were successful in terms of impact, but they weren't successful in terms of being sustainable. I created a policy for myself that no money from my company can come fill in the gaps of my home, meaning that anything my home lacks outside of my paycheck cannot go in. And because my business could not sustain that,
That is so hard.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have a paycheck from my nonprofit, which that's my paycheck. That's what goes into the house. Like, my husband is the breadwinner, but it takes my check for it not to be like,
Yeah.
When you say that, does that mean like you pay yourself?
No, I mean, I didn't start paying myself until Tamika made me start paying myself. And Marley has made me stop running my business like
a side hustle.
Not even just a side hustle, like running it as an extension of my household needs. And making it like my space for my universe and my thing I had to build. And if I wasn't taking care of myself financially, me, not the house, but me, even now, my big spiritual work is to think about just me. Like, Oya's like, I don't want to hear another prayer for somebody else. You ask me more for other people than you ask for yourself. Or even when we think about like, how can I grow the company? I'm thinking, what else can I do as opposed to what can someone do for me? What can people offer
that
me?
ass piece, yeah.
What I'm proud of is I never sacrificed the integrity of what I was offering people because of that, for money. I just was willing to work with whatever money I got. We've done like things like, Patreon. I'm not good at those things because I'm not good at asking or receiving. I'm working on that. But the reality is thousands and thousands of people have benefited from the work that I've put in. And
Truth.
When I think about what I made off of it, it's actually very little. And that's not their fault. That's like, because even if they would have sent it to me at the time, I would have just put it in the household as opposed to putting it into myself. And so that loneliness, that burden, that fear, that resentment, that I found myself almost ferally protecting my business at times, like as a separate entity from the household, because I'm so prone to see it as an extension. I think a lot of us do this, like we take something that's creative and beautiful for us and we make it responsible for things that are within the parameter of motherhood or being married or being Black. And then we begin to drain it of the joy. I'm clear now. Marley was my universe. We do what the fuck we want in that universe, and it's mine. And I'm unapologetic about it now. Like, it's mine. And I've never had a mine. My mine has always been ours. And to the point where I created that expectation in every dynamic and every relationship. I talk in we's. And Oya's like, no, you will say I, you will say me. That is my challenge, actually, as an entrepreneur right now. Part of what's helping me with that every day is Octavia Butler. Like I always say, when she wrote about what she wanted, she didn't say, I want to be the best writer and represent Black women everywhere. She said, I want to be the best. I want to have some money. She was very clear. I want to live in this type of house. And it was about her.
Yeah.
It wasn't about us. but we benefited because her unrelenting drive for what was the best for her led her to leave a legacy and a blueprint that all of us get to follow. But it started with her thinking, I want these things, and I'm not feeling some kind of way about it. So I'm working on not getting out of the self-funding box, but I still don't want a business loan. I still don't want to go through a white capitalist system, but I don't feel like it's impossible for someone who's benefited from my work to be an investor in me. I don't feel like that's impossible now.
I love that.
Keisha,
Listen, I got to run. I got another meeting, but I just
Sorry.
wanted to say, no. I just want to say I really appreciate you sharing that perspective. And I think it's challenging me to be really careful about how I let my
I was going to say
the gifting be the thing that's generating the household income. You know what I mean? And that be the primary goal of it. I'm really going to have to sit with how to shift perspective on this and make sure I'm very careful in protecting the work in that way.
Delicate balance.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for that new perspective.
Thanks,
Love y'all. Y'all will get my
soon.
word next time.
Okay. You know what?
Lucky
this bitch
you.
did that, didn't she?
Lucky you.
She did that.
You were saying you had to stop the business money from
Entering the home.
Yeah. And I think for me, I just realized that that's really hard for me. That is like where my guilt lies. Like I even have a lot of guilt of like the podcast not
generating
and not paying us what I want to pay us. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't know that. That's
let me tell you the science, though. What I realized behind this, right, is that especially when you're starting, which I mean, anything to be honest, let's really track this down for people. Most businesses that you see that are successful, even the entrepreneurs you see out there that are successful, that came at around the 7 to 10 year mark. Right? That they became that lucrative, that self-sustaining. If you really look at it, it's between the 7 and 10 year mark that they started to hit that stride. There are some anomalies where things just take off right away, but that is not the norm, right? Especially because of the factors you mentioned. So when you're in that 3 to 5 year range, if it is not yet a thing that is sustainable family home income. What it does is creates like the false idea that we have more money in the home than we do. And then it puts more pressure on the company, which you have to maintain
that income. Got you.
Because
okay.
the truth is that it won't be able to do that sustainably. You know, you'll have a good season and then you'll learn because you're learning, you're doing your ups and your downs and ebbs and flows. And so if the household begins to depend on that, that's a problem because it's not depending on a sustainable source of income.
Got you.
And then the household gets a false idea of how much money it actually has, and it develops goals around that. So what was happening in my house is people were thinking they were living better than they should have been. And then when that couldn't work, I was not just putting pressure on myself from my regular job. I was adding pressure on myself from my company, which
that's
really,
good.
Which wasn't right. They're separate because it is not an actual stream of income yet.
Got you.
It's not a stream of income yet.
Whereas my nonprofit is a stream of income because it has continuous
money
that
is coming in that is reliable. I remember Lovey did a post about this.
Yeah.
And it was like, it took me 10 years to be able to offer these folks that I love that are working for me, grinding for me health insurance. And she was so proud of that. And even once they get there, like Harriet's bookstore, I mean, I really admire that model. I really love what she's doing. I am certain, though, she could identify, we should have her on the podcast, with what we're talking about here because it can look really good, but all the money's going into that. So your life isn't yet feeling the ease or the comfort of that money yet, right? It's not going to feel that for a minute. That's one of the realities that I didn't know. I remember also the woman who does, what are the name of those products? Courtney Adelaye is her name. I definitely remember when I was at that retreat, people were like, well, how soon after did you, she said, hold on to your job as long as you can. Because if you don't, you want the ease of knowing that your daily life is taken care of. You want that. You want that so that you don't apply that to the company and the company can grow organically. Right? She said, I didn't leave that thing till I absolutely had to. Like it was impossible to keep functioning at the level in the work that's when I did it. And I hated hearing that. And I'm sure many people did, but it was the truth, right? It was the reality. So that's the biggest lesson I've learned in the last 2 years is I was treating it like a stream of income. And it's not. It's a baby. My company is a baby. Even though I've put out a lot of stuff and I'm doing a lot of stuff, it is a baby. It cannot be expected to fund my life, especially if you're self-funding it. So that self-funding piece also meant I had to be physically present for everything. All the gigs I did went into Marley.io. Marley.io makes very little money from the outside world. It just does. It offers more than it takes in. So I know that's not a great business model. I'm still figuring out my way around it. I feel like because my company is something that is a service to the world, the people receiving it shouldn't necessarily bear that burden. They pay into it. They invest into it, in a reasonable way. But I really feel like that money should be coming from the universe. That money should be coming from, private donors. That money should be coming from corporations that want to sponsor me that have it like that and not rest on, my listeners. But I would love for my listeners to show me that my community support is as strong as any investor, because I'm prioritizing and they have a bigger voice than any investor that would work with me. But I would love for them to show their love back monetarily, even if it's like $9 a month or whatever it is, because that lets me know I'm not alone in this fight to keep this thing that we all say we love, but it costs me everything to keep alive.
And I think for me, what I wanted is I wanted to be able to contribute to the household. I moved across the country. We got married. We started having kids. Then our other kids came to live with us. And so I wanted that to make that financial contribution because I felt like, we can get to where we want to be faster. So it was that grind mentality, but it
towards
was
the family,
but towards my family. And not towards, I had that grind mentality.
And if we think about it from a nature-centered way, it's like we don't expect, the first year we plant a tree, we don't expect it to give us fruit.
Yeah.
A business is a tree. It's not you don't just go out there and like get fruit. It takes time.
Yeah.
And so that's why you have to love it. That's why you have to love it.
Yeah.
If you don't love it, it won't work. Like, I love Marley.io. Marley.io is me. I love it so much. It's taught me to love me. It's taught me to set boundaries for me. It's taught me to prioritize my spiritual practice. It's taught me so many things.
That goes into our our last question. It goes into our second to last question. So how has entrepreneurship impacted your healing, your freedom, and your spirituality?
I do see it as my path to economic freedom. Even if that freedom is not here today, I see it. I see Marley.io is like the vehicle through which the universe wants to take care of me and the world. Not just the world, but me too. One of my big lessons was that Marley.io is not just here for the world. I am a part of that world, and Marley.io is here for me too. I love that it has made me shift what I thought business looked like. So I've gone from doing to being, and I'm watching my business grow that, and takes time to trust it because we're in a capitalist, white supremacist society. And so that can feel like that's not reasonable or realistic, but Marley.io is teaching me otherwise. And in terms of healing, it's really healing my money wounds. It's also making me prioritize myself and see myself as a part of the world and not just the person here to help save it. But I am also here to experience it and to find joy in it and to find love in it. And I can't leave myself out of that.
I think for me, healing wise, I can't go higher in this work if I don't heal.
That's it.
And
that's
my work is rooted in creativity, and my creativity doesn't expand if I don't heal. I can't reach to the depths. Those portals can't open to let that creativity flow through if I don't heal. Right. Healing wise, it's like you said, it heals your money wounds. I had a time wound. Like,
Yeah.
I'm running out of time.
And I think that came from your theater background too, and
Yeah.
your artist stuff. Yeah, because we could
Yeah.
feel like if we didn't do it in our 20s. Thank God for the Tarajis and the Toni Morrisons
Thank God for
and the
everybody
Violas
who is
and the
popping right
Avas
now.
who helped us to
Who
rethink
hit
that
it.
vision.
Yes.
And if you didn't do it by
Yeah.
21,
Thank
it
God for
was a
everybody who's
wrap.
popping right now. So
And looking better than ever. They are looking good.
Yeah. It helped me heal a time wound that I have time. I think freedom, like, this is my freedom.
Mm-hmm.
This is my freedom. Like, when I say I've curated the life that I want, I have curated the life that I want.
Mm-hmm.
When I say I've curated a life that I deal with Black people, I deal with Black folks.
And that didn't come through money, which is a
That
part of
didn't come through
entrepreneurship.
money.
That just came from prioritizing your creative entrepreneurial being.
Right. Yes, exactly. And what I wanted to do, and my work centers Black people. And that's really important for my children to see. I want them to see that, like, you can build something that sets you free. You know? So that was really important to me. My spirituality, I mean, it has humbled a sister to the higher power. I used to be super resistant. Like, this is like,
So are you saying you just moved from super resistant to resistant?
I don't think I'm resistant anymore. I think I'm pretty non-resistant.
At all?
I mean, we're all resistant to some things.
No, don't do that.
We all
don't do that.
No, I think I've moved. Like,
you have moved. You are less resistant.
Yeah,
you are less resistant. But Crystal, I know the look in your eye. There are still areas of life where you are like.
I think that
we had a whole conversation about an area like less than 48 hours ago.
Yes, I agree. But I think I think it's important to me to maintain some resistance on some level. I think some resistance on some level is part. But I'm not like my 8-year-old. My 8-year-old is like.
That used to be you.
That used to be me. Like, no, I want to do it. Oh, you know what? I tell him that he's so rigid. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, maybe he's not rigid. But he's resistant. And I think that resistance came from feeling like I had to do it on my own. I was the only thing that I had. I was my only source, my only engine. And now I know that that's not true.
That's not true.
And so that I have to work. And
that's where the tightness comes from. And that's how it gets into spirituality. Because when you say, oh, I didn't get this contract or this gig, you're thinking that was the source.
Yes.
Spirit is always the source. Y'all teaches me that all the time. Like, every time you think money's going to come from this place, let me show you. It comes from me, period. If I say yes, yes. If I say no, no. And we move on and you'll get it. But you cannot mistake the thing that it's coming through for the actual source.
I want to feel it in a good way. I don't want to receive it in a way that makes me feel heavy, that makes me feel like I can't be free, like I can't move and operate the way that
it matters.
All
money ain't good money. Is that's the saying?
You know, like one of the biggest lessons I learned last year was like I don't like booked and busy. I don't like that.
Yeah.
I don't like that feeling of jumping from one thing to another. I really like to savor in things. I really like to sit in things and really feel them fully and take all of that in and then
not be rushed
to take it in and then be able to fully apply.
I think as you get older in this journey too, what you realize is what you're saying about time and money, they're married. So there's been opportunities that came up that looked like it would do good money, but I knew that based on what I was being asked to do that didn't align with Marley Ayo's values, that time and that money would feel very expensive. Even if it looked good on the front end, by the time I was doing it, I would be like, this is not enough money. Because it wouldn't, because of the energy I'd have to move through to do it, that is expensive. That is expensive. Trying to force yourself to do things you don't want to do after you're already a sovereign being is hard. And so you start to say no to stuff, not based on the money, but based on the amount of energy you would have to shift through to do
You
it.
have to expand.
You want it to feel easeful, and you want to feel like super excited. Like you want to just feel like, oh, this energy is coming off me so easy because I'm excited to do it.
I want to feel like that when I did it, it took me no time. Or when I did it, like, I can't believe they're paying me for this. Like that's how I want to feel about things.
Yes. And I've even said, only bring me opportunities that make me feel like, oh, I'm so lucky. I'm so excited to do this.
Yeah,
this is amazing. I can't believe somebody's paying me to do this.
I work with BMFA, Black Mothers Breastfeeding Association. They were doing a conference online and they paid me to record all the sessions. And I was like, really? Like you want me to record and edit the sessions? Like that's what you want to pay me to do? And she's like,
had a good time.
I was like, what? Like, yes.
Yeah.
And I felt like it went by so fast. And I love doing it. And I really got to savor. I didn't take on anything else, you know?
Yeah, that's what you learn too. You don't fill your plate. Like this year, I have 3 focuses for Marley Ayel, and they all feel good. And the only new thing that I would allow to come in that space is something creative, something involving writing, or film or something like that. But that's it.
Whenever people are like, what awards do you dream of winning? I'm like, any award.
Yeah.
But it's not the winning that I dream of. It's the being nominated, really. And honestly, this is a shift for me because I used to be like, I want to win this particular award. But now it's the being nominated because, and when people used to say, oh, it's just an honor to be on, I'd be like, that's bullshit. You know you want to win. But
think of all the things you get to do just by being nominated. All the spaces you get to be in.
That's it. I would just want to be nominated.
Yeah.
I mean, if I won,
the winning can be kind of arbitrary and political, but it's kind of like being on a slam team. You just get to be a part of the community.
And if I won, I would be like, I would be like, that's right. I would feel like I deserve to win. But like, I want to be nominated because I get to talk about the work. And when I think about the interviews that I look at, I'm like, what did this oh, they were nominated for such and such, so they did this interview. Yeah. Like, I'm looking at all of those. I don't necessarily look at the acceptance speech or the awards night, but I look at everything leading up to it. And that's so much documentation.
Yeah, it's so good.
Of the work.
It's so good.
And that's like the savoring that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like that's really what really aligning my entrepreneur work and my creativity and my creative work has really taught me spiritually and what it has healed.
Yeah. I love that. This was a great topic.
It was.
And it was medicine. I needed it today.
Girl.
I did. Because you can slip in and out of that knowing.
So where do you see Marley Ayel 10 years from now?
I can't even imagine. I can leave it there. I can honestly leave it there. I can't even imagine. I know my life will be unrecognizable to me. Within a year, I think my life will be unrecognizable to me. But we'll be sitting here again saying I could never have imagined it. And that's where I think I'll leave it.
Yeah. I think I'll be doing something that hasn't even been invented yet.
There you go. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, this is good. This is good. Oh, well, we have a surprise for our other co-host, Nikisha. She had to hop off, so she didn't get to finish up with us. And our last segment is Black Mama Say, where we do our word for the year. But since Nikisha's not here and we're all anxious to hear her word first, we're going to save that for the next episode.
I think that's a brilliant idea. You hear that, Nikisha? Slick bitch. It's coming back. I think it's a brilliant idea, Crystal. I co-sign that. Anybody disagree? No? Motion accepted. That'll teach her.
So, if we want to go ahead and close out.
Do I do this part?
Close out.
Do I do this part? Let me see.
You want to do Nikisha's part?
I'll do Nikisha's part. Here we go.
Yeah.
Follow us on Instagram at Dem Black Mamas Podcast. And if you don't want to miss a minute of the magic and stay up to date with everything we are conjuring, sign up for our newsletter, The Mothership, which drops in your box twice a month. And don't forget to check out our website, www.demblackmamas.com. You can also send us your thoughts about the show us some love, and ask us some questions at magic@demblackmamas.com.
Be sure to listen and subscribe to our sister podcast hosted by our very own Thea Monier, Shaping the Shift. And be sure to support us in our Patreon. Become a magic maker. Invest in us. We love community support, community investment to help us sustain the podcast. And that's all we got. We ain't got no more. Namaste. Namaste. We held it for you, Nikisha. Next episode, boo.
In your face. Bye.